What's going on, everyone? I am the OPJellicent, and I have week number 1 of season number 4 of the GBA D League right here. Very excited about this match. Going to try to start off with a win, but Choice CJ is a very good battler. He has a couple championships, and we have actually battled once in the past. He managed to barely edge me out that time, so going to be trying to bounce back this time and pick up the win. Now, if you want to learn more about the matchup, you should go ahead and check out the team building video that I uploaded yesterday. Go over the 6 Pokemon that I bring in that video, and I also go over my thoughts on the matchup as a whole. But looking at the team preview right here, my Sash Lead Lander side definitely has a really great lead matchup. The only problematic lead on his part would be like a fast Lottie. Could try to Okomi with something like Draco Meteor or Ice Beam, so we would probably have to pivot out against that into something like Florges or our Hoopa Unbound, depending on what we're predicting, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. The Klefki is definitely the biggest thing that's stopping both of my win conditions this game. We don't have any coverage on our Hoopa Unbound, which is running a Trick Room set to actually hit that, and our Kyurem Blacklet can't really lock into our Outrage, which we're trying to sweep with until that thing is gone as well, so definitely a very scary Pokemon right there. Unfortunately, we can't really touch it with our Manaphy because our coverage is Ice Beam plus Energy Ball. We brought a Heart Swap plus Acid Armor set to try to take advantage of Calm Mind Suicune, and he didn't bring Suicune at all, so that's definitely pretty unfortunate. Would have loved to have Surf on there with Tail Glow to try to blow that back and also help out against his Zeraku, which is probably going to be Assault Vest or Specs definitely to check my Manaphy pretty well. But our Registeel can actually do some work right here too. We're running that counter set as you saw in the team builder, which basically we have an Okaberry to guarantee live a hit from the Darmanitan, and we naturally take a hit from the Terrakion, so we can take those hits and fire off a counter and ideally get rid of one of them. If we can get rid of the Choice Scarfer, that would really help out my win conditions a lot, so that's the idea. And then finally our Florges right here can switch into the Lottie Reviral. It's pretty much my one Fawn that's preventing me from getting swept by a Dragon Dance set, so definitely a very important mon right here. But yeah, initial game plan, I just want to try to preserve health on my Landorus to try to threaten that Klefki as best as I can, and go for game with my Kyurem or Hoopa. But let's go ahead and get right into things right here. Alright, so getting into things right here, I do decide to go ahead and lead off with my Landorus Incarnate, as I said, as unfortunately he is going to lead with probably the worst lead for me, which is the Mega Latios, but it's honestly not too bad. I can go ahead and pivot out into my Florgesteel or Florges and scout what exactly he wants to go for. If he goes for a Calm Mind, it could be kind of problematic, but he's going to go ahead and Mega Evolve right here, and I figured this would be my best option right now, because even if he starts to Calm Mind up, we can go out into our Registeel and throw off a T-Wave, and he's just going to go right here for the Ice Beam, which is totally fine, and we can eat that hit up despite the fact that we have no special defense, so that's very great right now. And I figured the Drapion was pretty obvious, as that is the switch he's going to make right now, so I go ahead and double on this guy, and go ahead and go right back here into my Landorus Incarnate. And this is great, and I'm not over-predicting right here. I'm going to go ahead and fire off that Earthquake. He is not Scarf Sash or Shukaberry, so we go ahead and just get rid of this mon right now. And that is absolutely amazing for my Trick Room Hoopa Unbound in the back, just because we didn't have any coverage for that. So he goes back here into his Mega Latios to threaten me out. I almost clicked U-turn, but then I figured preserving the Sash would be better for the Terrakion in case that is set up. So I go ahead and go out here into my Florges, as he makes a very nice double into the Darmanitan right now. So obviously, I do want to preserve my Florges' health for that Mega Latios, so I go ahead and switch out here into my Manaphy. We can scout the set, whether he's Scarf or Band, as he's going to make another very nice play right here, and just go right for the U-turn. And based on that damage, I know he's Scarf. There's no other item that he can really run that's viable, that's not like an attack boosting item, so he brings out his Zeraku right here, definitely expecting this thing to be Assault Vest, but there's no way I can stay in right here. This is my one fire resist, and I could definitely get swept by that Scarf Darmanitan if I do. So I go out here into my Registeel, as he's going to go for the Volt Switch, and this is the exact scenario that I wanted. He's going to go out either into the Darmanitan or the Terrakion, and I can try to throw off that counter. He goes out into their Darmanitan. I'm like, please go for Flare Lips, but he goes for the U-turn, and that's pretty unfortunate, because now my entire set is like exposed. He pretty much knows I'm Okaberry, despite the fact that I haven't revealed it yet, because I stayed in, and we're going to do like 10% to this Mega Latios right here with the counter. So the set did not end up working out, and we could have picked up another very easy KO right there, but at this point, since I figured out that my set was, since he figured out my set, I figured that it would just be much better to go ahead and try to throw off a T-Wave, and if I take damage, then it is what it is. He makes another very nice switch into his Zeraku, as I'm just going to go ahead and set up my Stealth Rocks, pressure that Darmanitan to whenever it wants to come back in, since I don't have coverage for that on my Manaphy. So I'm just pretty much going to sack off my Registeel right here. It's too low to really have any usefulness, and I'll just go ahead and throw off a Seismic Toss right here to put that thing in range of my Hoopa's Psyshock. as well as my Kyurem's Outrage, which are my 2 win conditions. So honestly, that's not too bad. He's going to go right here for the Thunderbolt and just knock me out. He could have 2-hit KO'd me if he had Aura Sphere, which I thought he might because he was shiny, but I guess Thunderbolt was his best thing to hit me with. And right here, this is where I make probably the big misplay of the match. He goes for the Hidden Power Hidden Power Ice, and I go ahead and click a U-turn instead of just Earthquaking to get rid of him. If I Earthquaked my Manaphy, could have at least done something, but even if he went out into that Latios, I could have dealt with my Florges, but now I figured, you know, let's just go ahead and go out here into my Hoopa Unbound and see if we can make something happen. I get up the Trick Room, and ideally I can get 2 Psyshocks off on this, and go ahead and get this thing in range of my Kyurem, but unfortunately, as you guys will see, he's actually running the anti-Trick Room set with the Player Off with 0 speed IVs, so we're only going to be able to get 1 Psyshock off, and unfortunately, Hoopa's not going to be able to do what I wanted it to. He's going to go right here for another Player Off, and is able to knock me out right there. And we only got 1 Psyshock off, so I figured there was no reason to preserve Hoopa since it wasn't really getting up a Trick Room at that amount of health anyway. And right here, this is another big misplay. I go out here into my Landorus. I knew Trick Room was up, but I actually thought Trick Room would go down as I sack it right here, but it actually stays up for 1 more turn. So now I'm forced out into my defensive Manaphy, since I can't really threaten him out with a faster Mon. As he's going to go right here for the Toxic, which is just bad in general, because I can't even hit this thing very hard. I figured I could try to weaken him. Maybe he'll end up sacking it, and my Kyurem can come through late game, but Ice Beam is doing very negligible damage right there, and this is where not carrying Surf was such a big deal. I really wish he brought that Calm Mind Suicune so the set could actually do something, but he's going to switch out here into his Mega Latios, which can definitely 1v1 me. It takes like 45% from the Ice Beam. Definitely gets risks getting frozen, but he can Roost Stall me or Recover Stall me all he wants right now. So we're going to get Leftovers Recovery, but since we're poisoned, there's no way I can 1v1 this Mon right here. So I decided to go ahead and switch out into my Florges. At this point, we have no win condition. His Klefki is too healthy, and our Kyurem's not going to be able to win the match. He's go right here for the Roost, which was definitely his best play to make sure he could take a hit for my Florges and stall out my Manaphy. As, yeah, I really don't have a counterplay to this at this point. I just have to hope he sacks off the Klefki, and maybe I can win with my Scarf Kyurem, but he's going to switch out here into his Darmanitan. Very surprised he went hard out into it, just because he could have sacked off a less useful mon, such as the Raikou, and I brought this in safely, because I definitely saw this thing had more value, but I guess this worked out anyway, because my Manaphy had no coverage for this. I am forced to switch back into my Manaphy right here, but unfortunately, we don't have any coverage. He's going to go for the Flare Blitz this time, which he finally goes for the Flare Blitz. I wish he did it against my Registeel earlier, but he's going to go ahead and take a bit of recoil damage. We get leftovers, but I can eat 1 more hit, so maybe if we get a crit Ice Beam right here, we can go ahead and knock this thing out with the Flare Blitz recoil. He's going to go right here for the Flare Blitz. He doesn't crit us, thankfully, and he takes some recoil. And as you guys will see right here, we do actually end up scoring the crit. I'm not sure whether it mattered, but we are able to knock out the Darmanitan right here with a critical hit, and it is going to be a double down right now. We're going to get leftovers recovery, but I believe we ended up dropping to this poison damage anyway, so no, we actually ended up living on 1. Okay, so he actually decided to go ahead and knock me out with the Raikou, I guess. He is going to go right here for he's going to get pressure off. He's just going to go ahead and knock me out right here with the Volt Switch. I guess that was a fine decision, because he could have brought that out against something like my Florges later, and I used it to pressure it after he threw off a Toxic with his Klefki. As he's going to go into the Klefki right here. My only last hope is Iron Head flinching, which is my last win condition, which if he's dual status, if he's Toxic Thunder Wave, we don't have a way of winning this anyway. And right here, he does reveal to be dual status. If he wasn't dual status, maybe we could have won with Iron Head spam, but I think he would have eventually Toxic'd me anyway, and this Klefki set's actually going to be proved to be quite an annoyance right here. He's going to have the barrier right here, and that way, I know he's Recycle, so I have no way of beating this Klefki at this point. He's pretty much just going to be able to 1v1 my last 2 Pokemon with this Mon right here, so definitely unfortunate with how the match went. My only way of actually breaking this is by getting Iron Head crits on the correct turn, which would be this turn right here, but unfortunately he's going to be put back in range of the berry, and pretty much he's going to be able to do this cycle until he knocks out both of my last Pokemon. There's no way Florges can 1v1 it. And Player F actually 2-hit KOs me. I was very surprised. Kyurem has good defense, but I guess he put some attack investment on there just to make sure that he could 2-hit KO my Hoopa too, but Player F's going to come off and knock out my Kyurem, and that's my last win condition gone. So we can bring out our Florges right here. I have to dodge a ton of Toxics, and either way, we don't Oko the Terrakion, it can just Rock Z me, which he did show me his team after. He was in fact Rock Z, but he's going to go ahead and just recycle a barrier right there. We throw off a Moonblast. I would have needed a crit right there and a crit on the Terrakion to have any chance at this match, which unfortunately we did not get. And he's going to go ahead and get his Wiki Berry. Throws off the Toxic, which he does connect on the first try, and that is officially going to seal up the match right here. Our Florges is going to get slowly worn down by this damage. I'm going to go right here for the Moonblast, but we're doing very little damage to this Klefki. And since he does have Player Off, the special attack drops aren't going to help us out at all. I figured there's really no point to trying to Wish Stall. There's really no point that, there's really no way that I have to break through this Klefki right now. So I go right here for the Moonblast, and do just a bit of damage. Not even I could have knocked him out right there. And at this point, Leftovers just kind of drawing out the match even more because there's no way I could win right here. So definitely, I think the biggest misplay was going for the U-turn against that Raku. Had I gone for the Earthquake right there, while our Sash would have been broken, we would have had one less pivot, and maybe my Kyurem could have done something. But really, this Klefki was the biggest stop. After he revealed this Recycle Berry set right here, there was really no way I could break through it with either of my win conditions, especially since that sacking off that Landorus Incarnate, not forgetting that, well, I didn't forget that Trick Room was up, but miscounting Trick Room turns, thinking that the Trick Room would go down was definitely a big deal. And in hindsight, I probably should have just gone hard out into my Manaphy right there instead and just preserved my Landorus, since it was really the last thing that I had to hit the Klefki super effectively. And not having Surf on my Manaphy too was definitely a big game changer right here, because we could have broken through this with a Tail Glow Surf set, and then maybe something could have happened with my Kyurem, but we're going to go right down to the player off right there, and that is going to be week 1 of season number 4 of the D League. Very unfortunate match right there. Darmanitan plus Klefki kind of just plowed through my team, but we did have a really heat early game play with that double into Earthquake, so that's always very nice, and I believe he picked up the 4-0 win right there. So very unfortunate, but there is obviously still 10 weeks to the season, so we do still definitely have time to bounce back, which I definitely do plan on doing. I believe next week we face It's Turbo, coach of the Phoenix Midnights. Not sure how his week 1 went, but that should definitely be an interesting match. But yeah, that's going to be the game. Kind of a disappointing start, but definitely going to try and bounce back. Once again, if you haven't yet, you should go ahead and check out CJ's side of the battle. I'm sure he had a very nice commentary going on there to you. You can see what his thoughts on the game were. And yeah, that's going to be it for me, guys. I'll see you guys next week. Later.